there, guys. Welcome back to Weekly Podcast. Unfortunately, last week I didn't have a microphone, so I couldn't join the analyst crew, but I'm back again with some more Burb Tales. I have some very special guests. I have the one and only, the shirtless legend himself, Matty Bollock, aka Verd. And we have the board game king of the NPL, champion. Oh, I like how cocky he is. This isn't even on the extended intro. Just wants to be in. I'm here.
What's going on, guys? Happy to be here.
Oh, we're so lucky to have.
He didn't even win a game.
Not yesterday, but I won the day before, and then several games of Monopoly before. Guys, I'm just unstoppable.
I like how we care more about our board game antics in the NPL than we care about the actual matches.
To be honest, who needs Pokemon when you
have
have Monopoly and Risk? Like, that's all we need.
Yeah. So just to give you guys a quick rundown, as always, on what we're going to do, that's my sort of a job, is to introduce everything. We're going to look at the games. Obviously, Jolt is not going to cover Him v Dancer, because that wouldn't make any sense to most of the viewers at home. We've got so many trades and transactions that we tried to break the world record for most trades and transactions in a single league week at 25. I don't know why we drafted before week 1, because really, if everyone's going to just trade and change their draft this much, then there's no point really drafting a team. Then we're going to look at the most important area of every week, which is Burb Bets, because that's the most important thing. A lot of people have been asking me from smaller leagues, what's the role of a good commissioner? And I think, in my personal opinion, the NPL is lucky to have one of the best commissioners going around. Someone as calm and collected as Jolt. So we're going to give a quick rundown, or Jolt's going to give us a quick rundown, on what he feels he does well as a commissioner. I don't think he has any faults, except for the fact he doesn't know how to stop beating people in board games. That's a bit of a fault, if you ask me.
You sound like a guy who's really trying to get into the minors.
I mean, to be fair, if you ask me, Jolt's fault is that he's just, not great at competitive battling.
Oh, yeah. That hurts deep, guys, man.
See the difference between someone trying to get into the minors versus someone who's already confirmed for the minors?
Yes, I can see the difference. Anyway, let's get into this a little bit, shall we?
And then we're going to discuss the matchups for week 4 and give you the odds for our latest Burb Bets. So without a further ado, I think there's no better place to start with week 3 games than Jolt v Danza. Take it away.
Yeah. So that game was pretty interesting. So Danza's team. Let's see, am I supposed to list off what he brought? So
that's up to you, man.
Let's see if I can remember what he brought. I think he brought Mega. Yeah, he brought Mega Alakazam, Tapu Lele, Excadrill, Serperior, Zoroark, and Komao. So definitely a pretty threatening offensive team that he brought. And I brought Mega Lopunny, Latias, Nidoking, Metagross, and Mandibuzz and Talonflame. So the big thing in that match, I felt, was that he really didn't bring switch-ins to Talonflame or Mega Lopunny, so those were definitely able to put in a lot of offensive work against his team. And Metagross also was really good against him defensively, as with the large amount of Spadef investment and an Assault Vest, he was able to wall out his Tapu Lele and his Mega Alakazam pretty well. Now, that said, from what I saw, Dan's actually had some really scary prep in the form of Magic Room Mega Alakazam, which, if you're not familiar with Magic Room, that's ignores held items. So if he was able to set up the Magic Room at any point during the game and severely weaken my Metagross with Shadow Ball at that point, then he would have been in a really good position against me, I think. So that battle was actually really, really close, and it took some, not to toot my own horn, but it took some pretty good plays to get myself in a good position in that game, most notably switching in Mega Lopunny on a Tapu Lele. So I felt that was worth noting. But yeah, that's all I have to say on that. You guys can say more if you want to critique me a little bit.
I think the one aspect of this game was just how bloody long it took. I needed a shave. I needed to go outside and have a shave. My Wi-Fi data plan ran out. I had to actually go ring Telstra for some more data. It was just so long, but definitely, I think it was one of those games that a lot of people talk about how good prep is, and something like Dan's prep seemed really, really good, except he just couldn't execute it. And it's something which is really sad to say, but it's the truth. Like, I think if you go in that Magic Room early on or late on in the match, and that Alakazam was probably best shot was trying to set Magic Room in the Psychic Terrain against Lopunny. it could have been a very, very different match.
Yeah, I agree for sure. And also, there was just a play earlier in the game that Matty Brolick pointed out to me, in that his Excadrill did have Stealth Rocks, and if he were to set up the Stealth Rocks early game, as well as Toxic to Mandibuzz, then Mandibuzz wouldn't really be a switch into Megalakazam. And that was really the only thing that was standing in the way of a Magic Room Megalakazam. So, yeah, a couple misplays early on, I think, kind of hurt Danza in the game, but it was still really good later on. Like, it came down to the wire, so you can't really complain too much about that.
Third?
Yeah, it was a good match. I mean, obviously it was a little bit shorter than the last time Jolt was in the game. So
well,
can't
well,
really complain.
turn-wise, yes. Battle time, not so much.
But I mean, honestly, it was a very good match. Jolt and Dan's obviously BFFs for life. And I don't know why I said BFFs for life when it's best friends forever for life. Fuck, I'm retarded. But regardless, it was a really solid battle. Like you said, like the prep on both sides was good, and sometimes prep doesn't work out, or you just don't have a situation where you can do it. I think that was what Jolt did really well, was that he pressured Danza a lot in this game to not allow him to get as much of the setup that he wanted off, and in the end it was just a really well fought battle. Can't really fault either person for it, to be fair.
Yeah, I think the next match was probably one of the most surprising game of this week. Having a rematch 2 weeks apart, or in 2 weeks, is something very unprecedented. Unless it's back off the last round into playoffs, which was Toge v Blake. What was your thoughts on that game, Verd?
Revenge is a dish best served electric. I mean, like, it was okay at the start, and then like that Thunderous set was ridiculous, man. Like, the fact that not only was it able to set up and blow back Blake's team, but the fact that he put enough bulk into the Thunderous so that it had the Chardy Berry being able to take a Stone Edge from Mega Pinsir, or the knockoff, which it did take. I think it lived with like 7 HP or something and knocked it out. Like, that was ridiculous. I think that was Anthony helping out with that set, but regardless, that was just a very, very crazy set that turned out to just work so well in Toge's favor. Completely just destroyed Blake in the matchup. I feel that, you know, Blake didn't necessarily play badly, but at the same time probably shouldn't have left a Klefki in against a Thunderous that could set up like multiple, like, especially because after the first Nuzlocke and Klefki stayed in, if Thunderous had just gone for an agility, then the game was definitely over at that point. So I feel that maybe he should have gone after something else to at least pressure Thunderous to not be able to go for the potential agility, because if he did that against Klefki, then even if Pinsir came in, it wouldn't be able to go for its Stone Edge or a knockoff, and that was just maybe one bad point on that. But honestly, it was just Toge getting a pretty, I wouldn't say it was an easy win, but it was very convincing.
Yeah, I think there's one bit that we didn't touch on that's definitely worth mentioning here. So one play that happened just before the battle really became wide open for Thunderous was that Blake overpredicted with his Ditto, which had transformed into Thunderous. And essentially what happened there is Blake expected Chris or Togavor to try to switch into, I imagine, his Lucario, or let's see, what else would have been, or Clefable, expecting a Dark Pulse coming from Blake's transformed Thunderous, and so he went for a Thunderbolt, while Chris made a ridiculous play and actually stayed in with his Thunderous, chewing up the Thunderbolt with his Volt Absorb. And because Blake was choice locked, that's what really, and at that point was in range of Stealth Rock, because Chris went for a Dark Pulse on that turn. That is what really set the stage for the Thunderous sweep. So I think that's really worth mentioning. The battle really did come down to a 50-50 in my opinion, and obviously once Togavor won that 50-50, then there wasn't a whole lot Blake could really do considering his limited responses for Thunderous. So I wouldn't really bash Blake too much for that. It's just that he lost a 50-50, and it was a pretty detrimental one at that. So I guess the advice would be to maybe not take that kind of a risk with Thunderous whenever that's the result, or the potential result there. But yeah, that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, I just think Jolt really summed up my thoughts probably there, was that it was one play, and although it is a 6-0, the score really doesn't show the game. I think a lot of people will be careful of that. I've seen 6-0s where it's been closer than a 1-0 win, just because of the way the match has been played out and thought out. I think that was the main consideration, I think, for this game. Although it was probably the most surprise result being a 6-0, I think the game really did come down to those little 50-50s.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna talk about the self-loathing game this week. I've never I've never seen someone get so mad about a Pokemon game, but in the NPL we're here to break records. Most trade transactions in a week. Razor had to start his own self-moving cult this week, which I thought was very impressive on his part. So this game really came down to I think the best way to put it up was, I think Razor heavily under prep for Mega Altaria, and at the start of the game, revealing that Z-Move Crobat, which I thought was a bit of an interesting bring. I was expecting more of a Infiltrator, Nasty Bot set, as really Anthony showed Razor last week what Buzzwell could do. I wouldn't think he would want to make those exact same mistakes. Fortunately, he did. The only misprep I think on Razor's part was not being Sash Sand. Abe did heavily prep for Sash Sand, knowing that, like for example, Altaria was very Spadef invested just for the Alakazam if they wanted to set up against the Alakazam, and the Alakazam is either a Life Orb or it was a Sash variant. And this game really comes down to a few sort of plays. Like turn 1, like going for U-turn on the rocks. I think Abe gets up to the rocks again. The Mega Gyarados is really good, like turn 1 too. But letting it get poisoned, not going for that Waterfall, that own prediction there really did hurt him. I don't know if he brought Waterfall, but I saw no reason not to go for Waterfall or Earthquake, as even in Circle, if you switch in, it couldn't really do much. I was more expecting the Lure Fire Blast. The Garchomp comes in, to get up its own rocks, but then it's over. It's a shame to see a match this one-sided, but at the same time, the people who are really enjoy the games that are a bit of a blowout. I think Razor's biggest mistake was nicknaming his Pokemon after Rizzy-Pow. Rizzy-Pow is a bit of an unlucky bloke at times, and unfortunately that luck seemed to blow onto Razor. I think, is Razor 0-3 now?
No, he's 1-2.
1-2.
Yeah.
Oh, the irony, speaking of Riz. But, it was a tough loss. I don't know how much the trip mattered on M-Ball, but it looked like it was going to be a fairly convincing game. It was pretty quick. I think Jolt wishes his game was with his short.
I really do, to be honest. Yeah.
Losing style,
Man,
losing
I've played about 3 hours worth of battles the past 2 weeks. It's been really fun.
It has. But the other thing that Abe did really well, which was he set up to +3 because he knew that that's how much speed he needed to outspeed the Crobat, because he wasn't running any speed. I think as any player watches the NPL, that's something that they really should consider. If you are going to bring a setup mon that uses DD or with bulk up or anything like that, always understand how much speed or attack investment you need to win the game. I think that's what Abe did really well.
Yeah, though my only thing I want to add on that is just kind of a critique on the prep, I guess, on Razor's part. So you briefly mentioned how the Crobat... Yeah, maybe you didn't mention this, but you mentioned something about Crobat, but it got me thinking. So from a builder's perspective, something I think could have been really effective in this matchup is just something like a Haze Crobat, like a bulky Haze Crobat, because that will always stop Altaria, always, no matter if it's physical or special. And at the very least, you have an option, because Crobat will naturally outspeed +1 Altaria. So you have the option to haze him away if he is Dragon Dance, even if that's not a very likely set you feel will come. You still need to be prepared for everything. It's a tough league. People are going to bring sets you don't expect, so you need to be able to deal with any form of Altaria, and that would have definitely helped him out there. But yeah, it was just the misplay was sending in Mega Gyarados against the Altaria, because that just lets us set up for free. And maybe Iron Tail Mega Gyarados would have been worth considering. I don't know. Kind of a tough situation for him, but I'm sure he'll bounce back.
Yeah, pretty much hitting a nail on the head with the haze. Oh, that was a first break. The haze on Crobat would have been really nice. Like a bulky bat set actually matches up quite nicely against Abe's team, especially since he has a Kartana as well. You're not going to be able to take the Smart Strikes as great, but you do outspeed, can have access to Heat Wave if you really need it. But that would be really nice for him to bring, I think, in that matchup. Overall, though, yeah, he just didn't do enough to stop Mega Altaria, and it was just another one of those games where Abe knew what he had to do to win, and just pretty much did it. There's not really much else you can really look at when it comes to battles like that. I think Razor's, I don't know, his last 2 games haven't been as he started really well, but his last 2 games really haven't been as convincing.
I think as well. I think one thing that Razor didn't do was he didn't learn from last week. You know, Zaza brought the setup Buzzwole against him, and that's what sort of won Zaza the game. This week it's to set up Altaria. Like, I don't know how many more matches it's going to take Razor to adjust to the setup Wincon. Because essentially, 9 times out of 10, a Wincon is either going to be a setup mon, it's going to be really powerful enough that it doesn't need to set up. So I don't know how Razor's going to adapt to that. Because he does mention that he's got a very glass cannon team at the moment. So he's got to think of ways to beat balance in both of your teams.
It's funny that you say glass cannon when he has a Cresselia, but I mean, you know, everything else is relatively glass cannon-ish, I guess. But just something as simple as Sash Alakazam would help a lot with those situations, so I don't know. Like, I personally was the one that recommended Life Orb Zam just because it's so good in the matchup, but considering how weak he really was to set up sweepers, Sash would have made a lot of sense as well.
See, Sash would have been really good too because he could have brought it in hard against Altaria, and if it was that bulky set, then potentially Alakazam could have outsped on that turn and then just gone for Encore. That could have been really nice for Razor. Yeah.
So next up, we have an amazing league commissioner, as he wants to be called. He does pay me for saying how amazing he is. I don't do this long time. What about... another one, which was another... I don't know if it was a shock result, but was Carnegie Merc. So, Jolt, do you want to tell us how the carnival was?
Yeah, so essentially what boiled down in that match was Carney brought Pidgeot first of all, so props to him for that, but he kind of didn't prep for Megaladios. It seemed like his response for Megaladios was Starmie, and Ice Beam Starmie, while that does a lot to non-boosted Megaladi, it doesn't Oko. And I don't think it really even gets close, despite the fact that it was Life Orb Starmie. But essentially, all Merc really had to do to win the game was to chip down the Assault Vest Tapu Bulu, and then set up a Calm Mind with Megaladios, and then Carney literally had nothing left to beat it, because I believe Carney brought the... it's going to be tough to remember all these, but I know he brought the Pidgeot, he brought the Conkeldurr, he brought the Starmie, Nihilego, some sort of Victini. I don't think it was Scarf. It might have been AV Victini or something like that. And then Tapu Bulu, I think that's 6 mons. But that's approximately what he brought. As you can see, none of that really deals with Megaladi that well. And I'm pretty confident that Bulu was Assault Vest. And if it was Assault Vest, it at least should have had some sort of super effective coverage for the Megaladios. And it didn't. I believe it only had Horn Leech, Stone Edge, Woodhammer, and then some other coverage move that's not Mega Horn.
Was it Nature? It wasn't Nature's
Madness. No, it wasn't Nature's Madness. I can't remember off the top of my head what the last move was, but none of that's super effective against Megaladios. And when that's going to be your only real switch into it, you definitely want some sort of coverage to hit it hard, just in case Smirk is playing carelessly, because then you can get rid of the biggest threat. But yeah, it was kind of a wipeout this game, unfortunately, for Carney because of Megaladios having such a fantastic matchup against the mon that Carney brought. But if he had brought stuff like, I don't know, Specs Hydreigon, that would get outsped too. I guess it'd have to be Scarf Hydreigon, Scarf Diggersby, even Mega Aggron. All those do really well against Megaladios and could have helped him out this game. So it is what it is.
Well, yeah, I mean, like Mega Aggron,
especially Mega Aggron, yeah, because
yeah, Mega Aggron would have been like the perfect counter. No, not the perfect counter, but like it is going to resist both of Latios' stabs. The best thing Latios can do to it is either DD up an EQ or Calm Mind up and Hidden Power Fire, but at the same time, like he can go for Toxic, Thunder Wave. Like even if he T-Waved and had the Aggron, then other things on the team, like potentially a Diggersby or other stuff, like even freaking Conkeldurr could have gone for Ice Punches then, and you know, put him in a better spot. But yeah, I mean, it was pretty much a whitewash. He just didn't bring really any way to deal with probably the biggest threat on Merc's team, and also the fact that I think at that point Merc still had the Jirachi, so Aggron would have been good against both of those things on matchup.
A little less so for Jirachi because he did bring Bulu, so Earthquake would get powered down, but Fire Punch exists, so that would have been an option too, but yeah.
I just think as well, Arnie just seems to be already on that back foot of momentum. You know, losing the game last week was really like shaking up his confidence. And you have Merc, who lost pretty much one of the best battlers in the league by hair, just the hair. And he won last week after playing what would be a bit more of attrition, I would say. It was just the failure of this Truthful plan once again, 100 years later. But Merc comes into the mentality, and you get the two mentalities that come up against one another, and Merc just seemed to know what he wanted to do to win. Carney wanted to know what he wanted to do to win, but Merc seemed to just better. I don't know how much Merc values prep, and he could really leave out this game. You know, Carney not bringing Mega Aggron. He brought the Pidgeot here. I think he brought two defoggers. Something like that, I thought it was extremely weird. It's the second time he's done it now, and he brought dual rockers against Mother Jolt, and he did bring two defoggers against Merc. It's just really getting to, like, I wonder why. It seems to be such a waste, in my opinion. It seems like something you can do in like a lower league, but, you know, when you get to this competitive aspect, you need every mon counts, every move counts. And when you're going to bring a Pidgeot, and it did nothing the whole game. I think it default once and just died. It's just like, Arnie, what are you doing? I know you love your lower tier mons, buddy, but please, stop. Well, that's my 2 cents on the game, anyway. So, Bird, why don't you tell us what Birds was a surprise for the week? It was Trev beating Seb. I thought it was a bit of a mix-up.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, this was a very even matchup on paper. I think, you know, Trev's had a bit of a rough start. I don't necessarily think, like, he's made two games in a row where he's pretty much made a play that's kind of backfired and cost him badly. But I think against Seb, you know, he just went back to his roots. He played, you know, the long game. He reserved that Zygarde, which was really important. And also, I guess the most important thing he did was he was continually trying to chip away at the Raikou, because he knew that if he could get the Raikou down into E-Speed range, it wouldn't be a threat anymore. And Raikou was basically Seb's win con at that point. So that was really smart. Overall, I didn't think it was a bad battle from either of them. I think just, you know, Trev finally got, I guess, a bit of his mojo back. And, I mean, hopefully it leads to better results. But I mean, he's got Abe next week, who's, like, absolutely rolling right now. So, I don't know. I mean, to me, like, the big thing that I keep just focusing on was the fact that Trev, you know, he played the long game a lot smarter, and in the end, he got rid of that Raikou, which was the biggest rally. I know it was the last thing he killed, but weakening it to that point was crucial, because if he didn't do that and Raikou lived the E-Speed, then Trev would have lost. So, yeah. But, I mean, is there anything you guys would like to touch on that battle? I feel that it was just really even between both of them.
Yeah, it was definitely a really good battle. I just wanted to draw attention to a set that Trev brought in this game that was probably my favorite so far this season out of anybody, and that was a Mimikyu set with, I believe, Taunt, Curse, Infestation, and then some sort of, I think like Woodhammer, and it 1v1 to Gliscor. It was really cool to see. It's cool to see Trev, or just any of these coaches, trying to bring out the versatility in some of these newer Pokemon, because a lot of them I personally am really skeptical of, because they don't have that wide of a move pool yet. But it's cool to see some of the tricky tactics that people can use with these Pokemon with a limited move pool. So I really did enjoy that set, but you know, overall it's just a really good game. And quite honestly, I'm happy for Trev to finally get in the win column, because he's definitely good enough to deserve some wins at this point in the season. So props to him for that.
I think the only thing that changed for Trev this week and last week was that I bet on him this week too. I bet and said this week to him, and he
that
won
changes everything.
I know. It's that mentality, I think. Trevor loves rubbing it in my face when he loses, which is like, you just lost 10 cents in bird bet. You know, this week, he gets rubbed in my face, I lost 10 cents in bird bets because something is against him. You know, I think that's what it comes down to. These competitors really care about their bird bets. You know, dollary dues, it only takes about 300 billion of them to get 1 cent, but it's really crucial for them to be able to economy. But I think the crucial thing about this game was that Mimikyu set. Seb, as soon as that, and the Choice Band and Zygarde as well. Choice Band and Zygarde can run with Tapu Fini, the Scarf Tapu Fini, I believe, or Specs Tapu Fini that Seb brought. And then, on top of that, getting rid of his Gliscor with that Mimikyu set was just golden. I don't think you can see a better Mimikyu set for the time being, unless someone can bring a Psych Up Mimikyu set. That's large, Trev. I don't think it's gonna.
Sorry, I'm dying. That was good. You want to explain the reference, or are you gonna just let it go?
The Psych Up. Okay, so a league that I'm partaking in bans Mimikyu for the sole reason that with Disguise and Psych Up is the ultimate Aberforth counter. So that's why I got banned. Like they really do want Abe to join the league and win with this setup. So they banned Mimikyu. In the NPL, we see that set was actually too broken, so we allowed Mega Kangaskhan in its only set. But yeah, that's the reference to those little boys and girls at home. So next up, we have what I think was one of the games of the week, which was Anxiety Bomb, aka my boy Dallas, against Rizzy Power. This game, I don't want to say it came down to gamesmanship, but it really did, in my opinion. I was on call with someone while this match was going on. Dallas started so well, but as soon as Riz pointed the "It's John Cena" nickname on the Necrozma, it just seemed to be a different game. And I hate to think that that's what caused it to Dallas, but when you look at the game, it just seems to be that there's a few misplays on either end. It came down pretty close. Sacking up the Situai, or not, you turning with the Situai, letting that Cosmo set up again. This really shows why people in the GBA banned it. So if you don't want to play it again, Dallas, I suggest looking at the GBA for next season and have banned the Cosmo. But the thing was, this game was that it seemed just to come down to, I think it's about turn 20 when a Cosmo comes in, and the nickname and the gamesmanship that goes on with the nickname seems to make it a very different game, and it seems nearly to have a Dallas at the start of the game, and after the nickname, it's a different Dallas. And I think, unfortunately, that's what this game came down to. I can't think of anything else. I think there doesn't seem to be any other turning point. There doesn't seem to be any other plays or anything like that. There's a few misplays in there, not seeing the T-spikes with wheezing, but apart from that, I can't really say much that really changed the game. I know it sounds like a shitty thing to blame, but that's just, in my personal opinion, what happened.
Yeah, to me, you can go ahead, Bert.
Okay, so the big thing was, like, I did help Dallas with team building, and I recommended to him that a Toxic Orb Wheezing would be really good. Sorry, not Toxic Orb, Toxic Spike Wheezing would be really good in this matchup, just because, like, even if he brought Rapid Spin on Donphan, he had Decidueye with a Colbur Berry, so he could deal with Donphan trying to spin, so that wouldn't be a big deal. And obviously Toxic Spikes were really nice to wear down a lot of Riz's team. In the end, he decided against it. He felt that potentially other mons that set up could be an issue, so he decided to bring Clear Smog instead. And on that turn where I think he goes for Flamethrower against the Tornadus, he could have gone for Toxic Spikes, and if he'd done that, even with one layer of Toxic Spikes, it would have been, increased, it would have just stacked up overall. It would have been good against the Necrozma to weaken it down, to the point where, potentially the combination of Spirit Shackle plus Haze would have 1v1'd it with the Decidueye, because obviously you only had limited Moonlights left over there. And then I just think that would have been probably the best thing. So I'm not saying he lost because he didn't obviously listen to potential advice. I think, he had a plan in mind and he tried going with it. But I think the other big misplay that he did was not just keeping in Decidueye to 1v1 the Donphan. I think at one point he switched down, tried to do it. The other big thing actually was sacking off Wheezing when it was his best switch into Sylveon. Basically, every time Sylveon came in, if it didn't go for Baton Pass, you could go into Wheezing and get up a layer of Toxic Spikes. An early game, if he got up 2 layers of Toxic Spikes, with Riz having no way to get rid of them, that was pretty much GG, because if all of Riz's mons are badly poisoned, their recovery is lacking, they've got no way to heal themselves, it just would have been so much better overall. So I want to say maybe that was one of the big factors, like sacking Wheezing early, then it made him have to sack Cobalion for no reason as well. So I think just a couple of misplays there, but in the end it was a very close game. And I think, potentially Dallas, had a chance if he'd made some different plays, but I just feel that if he had gone with the Toxic Spikes, and if he played a bit better around Sylveon, he would have had a much better chance of winning.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add for the sake of time, so we can go ahead and move on.
Okay, third, this is my opinion, was game of the week. I think this game came down to, a lot of people are surprised about this game, I think, about the outcome, which was, let's do the burb story as always. So, I don't think people know, right? But lizards, right? They go on the ground, and in Australia, the thing that attack the lizards are kookaburras, right? You know what a kookaburra looks like? It looks like a Farfetch'd. And this was the game it was, I think. It was a classic Aussie battle of the lizard versus the kookaburra. But take it away, buddy.
How you going? Alright, listen up here, mate. No, I can't do that. Basically, this match was great. Like, people say that I bash on Cloud a lot, but, like, it's just because of how competitive this league is. Like, you have to step it up, or else you're gonna get left in the dust. And he stepped it up this week. Against probably he's currently, like, the number 1 ranked guy that we have in the competition. He brought it right to him. Like, granted, Anthony made some pretty suspect plays a lot of the time, but in saying that, don't take away from the fact that Cloud did play very, very well. I think early game he was outplaying Zazo like almost every turn. Like, he continually had momentum. He was just doing all the right stuff. I think it was when the game kind of progressed to the middle and late sections that Cloud maybe made the questionable plays that kind of led to his eventual demise. But at the same time, I also think that Anthony did get kind of lucky with getting the Thunderbolt paralysis on Toxapex, because obviously that full power turn against the Cofagrigus meant that he couldn't get the recover off, and if he was chilling at about 85 or 90% with his Toxapex, then he could have lived the Psychic from Gardevoir and then potentially the Thunderbolt from Registeel, and that would have won him the game. So there's that. So it's just, I think it was a pretty even match. Like, you're not wrong, Burb. It was probably the best match potentially of the week. I think there is maybe one that beats it, but that's just my opinion. I think Trev versus Seb was better, but I think this was a very good match. It was quite close, but I think, you know, in the end, one of the bigger misplays I found was when Cloud had a Celebi in against the Registeel, and the Registeel couldn't really touch the Celebi. Like, all it could really do was go for Iron Head. Like, if he ran Recover over U-turn and then had that Baton Pass set, what he could have done to basically win the game was he had a Jolly Beedrill in the back, which outsped Scarf Volcanion, which means that he could have got to +6 with Celebi, then gone for the Baton Pass out to Beedrill, and that way Drill Ron was definitely killing Registeel. I think that would have been a much better play for him overall. Like, it just doing it that way instead of going to +2 and then seeing it does half. If he had got himself up to +6, then he was OHKOing everything else on Anthony's team and just like sweeping him from there. So definitely feel like he could have maybe done that a bit better, like assess the situation a bit more than just thinking, oh well, +2 Drill Run surely kills Registeel, because why would he bring a defensive Registeel against a Mega Beedrill? But, you know, it's just, yeah, overall maybe that could have been a better play for him, but I do think it was a very good match. I've rambled on long enough. Do you guys have anything you want to say about it?
Just always check what full moves your Pokemon brings out. Bit of a misplay not including that pursuit on Gardevoir, but we forgive you this time, mate. Just
yeah, I also wasn't the biggest fan of U-turn plus Baton Pass on Celebi. I think it really could have benefited from a different fourth move, but the only other thing I wanted to just briefly point out, kind of defending Zazo a little bit, so the paralysis on the Toxapex. So while it theoretically could have mattered if the full paras ended up causing Toxapex to go down, I don't think it actually did, because it was still able to get all of its health back during the sequence of turns that followed the paralysis, and no matter what, as long as Zazo still had plenty of sacks or switch-ins available, he'd always be able to regenerate or heal his Gardevoir and get a bunch of damage on Toxapex at least 2 or 3 more times, despite the paralysis. So while it might look at face value that the paralysis was really key, I don't think it quite got to that point yet. So I do think it really does come down to just Cloud had a chance to win with Celebi versus the Registeel if he stores Dance twice, but he didn't. Unfortunately for Cloud, that means that Zaza was able to finish off the game with the combination of Gardevoir and whatever the heck else he had left at that point. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say on that.
Alright, so I've got the pleasure of doing one of a lot of people's dream matches, being the German, I don't know what you can put on, otherwise, you know what you can put on his tag, but Shardy, aka the Cyber Bully, versus Gypsy King, aka Other Lizard. This game was highly anticipated. It is a disappointment having Shardy play Gypsy. I wanted Gypsy to have a challenge playing a championship winning team this week, but, you know, you guys play Shardy, it's alright. So Shardy plurped really well. I think Porygon 2 being the best mon in League format that Shardy is not endorsing me to say at the moment was definitely a great help. Being that Trick Room set caught everyone off guard, but we all know how lucky Gypsy is with his rolls. You know, the tri-attacks didn't go in Shardy's favour, but definitely don't let your memes be dreams, kiddies. I think the only real misplay this match Shardy made was clicking Swords Dance. He even acknowledged it himself. This game really did come down to the wire. Even though it was a 4-0, I definitely think Gypsy would have got a bit of a scare, and I think you should just be happy that PokeGame dropped down, because you get to play PokeGame, it could have been a different game. It could have been a 5 or a 6-0 in Gypsy's favour, but we'll never know the true result of that match.
Yeah, I guess all I really want to add on that, like, I'm not going to question Shoddy's prep at all. It obviously was really good, but I do think that something like an AV Tangrowth could have been nice, since he did seem to be pretty weak to Keldeo, considering what he brought, considering what Shoddy brought, that is, as well as somewhat weak to the Gardevoir as well, and AV Tang does switch in decently well, but, that was all I really wanted to say on that. It was a really good game, though, for sure, despite the fact that the differential looked a little bit lopsided. I think Shoddy brought probably some of the best possible sets against him, and made a game of it, so you can't really ask for much more than that against the King, right?
Oh, I should probably be adding points here. I think it was actually, they're probably this match, along with Trev and Seb and Zazo and Cloud, probably the 3 matches of the week, in my opinion. I think they were the closest fought. I think it was close. Obviously, roles are a factor, and they can either go with you or against you, and I guess, Gypsy week 1 had a roll go against him, so I guess it's a bit of justice for him, he may see. I don't really know, but I think, Shardy definitely brought it to him. I think, we're very lucky to have him come in now as a replacement coach, because I think he'll be bringing a lot of competitive matches to us throughout the season. But yeah, I agree, that Sword Stance play probably wasn't the best at the time, but he knows that now, and he'll move on and do better, I think, in the upcoming weeks.
Alright, so we've had the fun part where we're going to bash all the coaches and all the misplays and all the plays and Sliverman props, but now we could come up to the greatest section of them all, trade for transactions of this week, and boy oh boy, well, there's a lot. Most notably, Rizzy Pal did drop his Magneton and Chandelure for Goodra and Rotom Heat. I think, personally, I don't know why he dropped Shandy. I don't think he has a Ghost type anymore, which I think is a bit interesting on Riz's part. I think he needed a Ghost type as a spin blocker, especially considering that he did gain Tornadus the previous week and Mantine. So essentially, he's really asking his opponents that, I'll get rid of the hazards for you. Don't worry about it, bud. I don't really rate Rotom Heat in format. I think it's being weak to rocks really just hinders it. It's good Mon in Levitate, but with 2 coaches having Zygardes with 1,000 Arrows, not the best pick. Also, Goodra I do like as the Dragon type on his team, but I don't know. He'll have to convince me how he uses it. So what do you guys think? So, Jolt, why don't you tell us your trades and transactions?
Yeah. So I ended up I made trades. So I traded my my Whimsicott with Aberforth for his Ferrothorn, and then I traded my Doublade for Mismagius, and that trade was with Merc. So those trades I thought were really beneficial for my team because, first of all, Whimsicott wasn't really something my team needed. I mainly drafted it as a 1,000 Arrow switch in, but then I realized I have other ways to deal with that. So that really became a little bit unnecessary on my team, I thought. Plus, I felt that I really, really needed a third way to set up hazards outside of Nidoking and Metagross, as I would like to have the freedom of running 4 coverage moves, for example, on Nidoking and Metagross, or adding that 4th move being a priority move and having 3 other coverage moves, or just 3 other moves, period. That really frees up that slot by having that 3rd potential rocker in Ferrothorn. Plus, that gives me a hazard stack option, which with Mega Lopunny I know can be really, really threatening, and also with Nidoking, both of those benefit a lot from having the supportive hazard stack. And then for the Mismagius, essentially, the main reason why I swapped my Ghost types is that Doublade became really redundant with the rest of my team when I picked up Ferrothorn, as that would be my 3rd Steel type, the other being Metagross, all 3 of them being relatively slow, Doublade kind of fulfilling a similar role as Metagross outside of being that Mega Kang counter. But now I have multiple ways of dealing with Mega Kang as well, with Mismagius still deterring the Seismic Toss Wish Protect set. So I think I can still deal with the matchups pretty well, but that's mainly why I made those transactions this week.
So, Bird, the main guy you're in the front office for is Cloud. Can you tell us about his trading transactions this week?
Well, I actually had a good chat with Cloud about him, because he came to me and he's like, I don't really know what to do. the team, obviously, like, some things aren't really working too great, so I'm looking at, like, some things to change, and I had a chat with him about some of the things that were free, and, you know, he traded Skarmory for Forge. I didn't really know about that one until, like, he told me. I think it's an alright trade. I mean, it gives Cloud another spinner, which I guess is nice, in the sense that it's not, like, there's less pressure on Hitmontop to be his only spinner. Fortress does match up better against ghost types, like, I guess, but at the same time, he just lost a really nice flying type for his team, so I was like, okay, you gotta cover that. And he's like, alright, fair enough. And he wasn't a huge fan of Frostlass, although he will lose a ghost type because of this. I was like, well, you know, this thing's better. So he got Sneasel. He has a lot of experience with Sneasel. He has a lot of experience with Fortress too, two Pokemon he's used a lot in the past. I think he's going back to things he's more comfortable with and he'll do better with when it comes to team building and planning. And then we decided on Gyarados just because he does already have Tox Specs as a water type, but I think it's better than Sharpedo, especially with Z moves as well. It's really nice because obviously Supersonic Sky Strike just does so much to a lot of bulky water types now, as well as, you know, Earthquake, Waterfall, usual stuff. Also the fact that you can run especially offensive Gyarados, obviously for like your bulky grass types potentially, or like your Ferrothorns, where you can go for that Z Fire Blast and do like a hell of a lot of damage. So there's that for him. Plus, it is a very good, Intimidate's a great ability, so is Moxie. Does give him kind of really good synergy actually with Manectric, because obviously the Lightning Rod boost from there. So overall, pretty solid picks for Cloud. They're definitely things he's more comfortable with, so I think he can do really well with them.
Okay, so I'll take Zazo's next. Zazo got sick of Mega Blastoise. He wanted to bring Mega Heracross. Getting rid of Buzzwole the week earlier, he really saw the potential in Mega Heracross. That base 180 attack stat, no one really wants to switch into it. And he solely drafted Computer Tops. He needed a spinner after losing Mega Blastoise. And also, he wanted to mention that Jolt stopped trying to see Team Zazo, because that's why he got Computer Tops.
Makes sense.
You know, yeah, you are the biggest threat, Jolt, so can you please stop making trades? So I think it's going to really improve his team a bit. Definitely one other trade I think he's got left. I think he's making next week. I'm interested to see. But it's definitely interesting to see those two trades, as he now has a rapid spinner, but at the same time, I think it's a bit redundant being that rapid spinner. It's an interesting pick being the rock type it is, but I thought Kangaskhan benefited his team more rather than Computer Tops. So, Jolt, why don't you tell us about one of the smaller team's trades this week, was Toad.
Yeah, so Toad decided to drop Minior for Staraptor, which I thought was kind of interesting. Obviously, Staraptor is a really big threat just because bird spam is so good right now, as teams are not really as prepared for it as they have been in the past, it seems. But I don't know how much I like that one, because Minior really did have a nice role on Toad's team, as he doesn't really have too many offensive setup sweepers. I know he has Haxorus and Lucario, but I guess he has Weavile too. I shouldn't have said that. But anyways, I really did like Minior on his team, though, just for its typing, as well as just being that Shell Smash threat, as that's something that really you are forced to prepare for. And maybe he just felt it was kind of redundant with Lucario and Haxorus. That'd be my guess. As I'm not terribly familiar with Minior's coverage at this point, but I imagine it doesn't really cover the things that Lucario and Haxorus already can, so, or I imagine they have similar coverage. But anyways, it's an okay transaction. We'll just kind of see what turns out from it. But Staraptor's obviously a threat, so I don't think he lost anything from making that transaction. But it's sad to not see Minior see some use in this first season in the generation.
So, Verd, what do you think of Moxie's trade transactions this week?
So, I think interesting that he traded Latios for Keldeo. Keldeo, I think, though, is really nice for his team. Obviously, Keldeo is just a great Pokemon in the format. I think the big one, though, that he did that was a lot better for him was dropping Alolan Dugtrio for Electivire. I think that Alolan Dugtrio, I don't think it's that great in this format. I'm not really a huge fan of it at all. I think Electivire is a lot better for his team, obviously having Motor Drive, but also just being a really nice electric type. Should be able to do a lot of work, because it is very versatile for an electric type. Obviously, it can be physical as well as special. So, overall, I think they were pretty good deals for Moxie. I think maybe they're also Pokemon that he's more comfortable with, so that'll let him play a bit better with them.
Yeah, I'll take Gypsies. You know what really pisses me off, right? Gypsy has 3 water types. It rains all bloody week in Sydney. You know what? It gets rid of 2 of the water types, and now we're in like a fucking heat wave. Bloody Gypsy. The trade for Keldeo for Blurdios, oh my lord, do people, like, please suspect test him, please. But the support for Heracross, I think it's a great trade for Gypsy. I think Heracross is really a mon that, when a good coach can use it well, it really offers a lot for his team. I think Gypsy's a little bit upset with his good support, not getting that kill on that Mega Venusaur week 1, but that's definitely something that I'm interested in seeing how it does. Bird, why don't you take us over one of the 3 teams left? Take us over to Trev's team.
Yeah, old mate Trivy Doodle. I think that he made a couple of decent trades. I want to say they're decent trades. They're interesting. Like, when you look at them on paper, you get a bit confused. But basically, he traded his Mienshao for Emboar. That was from the Chicago Bewares. Which, it's an interesting one because Emboar, I guess because Trev already had a Alolan Marowak at the time, then he got rid of a Alolan Marowak. It makes more sense to give him a Fire type, replacing the Fire type, but Emboar is quite slow, and Trev's team was already lacking a bit of speed, so I was a little bit worried about that one. Then he also traded Silvally for a Alolan Marowak, so I was like, okay, he's lost another fast spawn to pick up another slow one, so maybe he's looking for like some kind of Trick Room team, but then it was also weird that he got a Alolan Marowak when he just got Emboar, so it's 2 Fire types, so that was a little bit odd. And then he drops Gengar, another fast Pokemon for Dragology, and I'm like, alright, he's definitely, I think, trying to look at having a couple of fast mons and then also really focusing on potential Trick Room offense. I think that, overall these mons are certainly bulkier than the 3 that he dropped, but I don't know if they're more versatile. I think Mienshao, Silvally, and Gengar have a lot more versatility to them. But the one thing I will say is the fact that now he has the core of a Alolan Marowak and Celesteela, which is just gross and will probably be very frustrating for a lot of his opponents in the future. So overall, I don't know if it's the best trades and transactions for Trev, but I think he'll make them work.
And what about you, Jolt? Take us over the one last trade that Shadi made, which was the phenomenal for Raichu.
Yeah, so I did like that one quite a bit, mainly because Crabominable was kind of bad, so there's that. But I feel like Raichu really helps Shadi's team a lot because Raichu does have Lightning Rod as an ability, so that will support the Manaphy and the Torn T really well. And Crabominable was just so redundant with the rest of his team, as he already had the Mega Medicham, as well as just several slow physical threats, which is all Crabominable really is, with a ton of weaknesses. So yeah, I'm pretty happy to see Crabominable go, despite how much Joey PokeBall loves it. But definitely excited to see Raichu do a little bit of work, as it is Z eligible on his team, so Z-move Raichu could be quite the threat, honestly, as after a Nasty Plot and all of its coverage options, it really could do some work against certain teams. So definitely excited to see how that does. But he also got a really nice end of the deal, in my opinion, grabbing Skarmory from Cloud for Fortress, as Skarmory helps out his team quite a bit, despite the fact that it kind of adds to the electric weakness. I guess it's going to be a little bit of pressure on Raichu to patch that up, but we'll just kind of see how that goes.
Yeah, so that wraps up our trades and transactions. If you guys are bad with us for so long, I don't know how you have so much patience, but so the one thing that we're going to take advantage of being Jolt here, I know it's a bit long this podcast, but Jolt, what are a few things that you feel that you do well as commissioner, but other, like, smaller leagues, if they want to make their build a community like the NPL, I think, what do you think they should do, or any advice?
Yeah, okay, so the best piece of advice, I guess I have 4 points that I'll try to go over here. So the number one is, if you are trying to grow your league or even start up a new league, and you want it to grow in the community, then you need to find a niche. What will your league's niche be in the community? Because whenever I became commissioner of the NPL, that's the first thing that I tried to figure out was, okay, what do I want to do with this league? If you don't have a goal in mind, then how are you going to grow your league? So for those of you who do follow the NPL, you probably have noticed that our niche in the community, at least what we're trying to do, is to be the most difficult league to play in, with the top players from around the community. And I feel like we're doing a pretty good job at bringing in some of the top players. So that's what our niche is, and we're trying to embrace that, and the audience has responded well to it. So that's number one, find your niche in the community. And then from there, as a commissioner, so I'm speaking to the commissioners now, build or develop a core of coaches that you really trust. So this doesn't have to be like all 12 or 16 of your coaches. I'm talking about a smaller group. For me, it's about 5 who I try to keep really close to me, and I talk to them really quite frequently because I really trust their opinion, and we try to work out league decisions as a group. And then from that, we're usually able to come up with ideas that we can show to the rest of the league. And then it just kind of trickles down, and it ends up being something that everyone, at least for the most part, approves of. And whenever the whole league is happy with how things are operating, then you're going to see growth within the league and happiness within the league, which keeps people around and etc. So that's the second point I wanted to say. And then third would be somewhat of a plug for me, I guess. So it helps to make your league known in the community. So that can be in the form of joining tournaments. Hint, hint, like the Token Minorities tournaments, March Madness, Summer Showdown. That could also be in the form of League Wars, which is something that we've done a couple of so far in the past with the fake NPL and the PPL, and that's another way to get your name out there, especially if you agree with the other league to upload your battles, because that'll just be pretty much free recognition with whichever league that you're competing against. So those are 2 options, as well as just being active on Twitter and talking to other, or just social media in general, and talking to other coaches from around the community, just so they know who you are. Maybe just throw in a subtle hint of the league that you're in, then hey, they'll then be aware of your league, and that's just part of the growth process. So that's something that I think could help as well. That's my third point. And then finally, I help each other out within your league. Give people mock battles if that's something they're into. Just help them out, help them improve as a battler. If you're one of the top battlers in your league and you think there's some people in your league that are struggling a little bit, reach out to them, help them improve, and that'll make them respect you more. And quite honestly, it'll benefit you both, because I personally feel like you improve yourself as you're trying to teach someone else as well. So just helping each other out within the league helps build that sense of community within yourself, as well as even reaching out to people in other leagues and trying to help them. I know a lot of people have front offices that have people from other leagues in them, and I think that's a great idea. That builds community. And really, for the smaller leagues, community is so important because that's how you get your foot in the door with other players who might be in maybe a bigger league, and just having that connection is really important, I feel, for growth purposes. So I don't know, that's about all I got. You guys have anything that you think I should add to that?
I think the main thing is, I'm speaking to a range of NPL coaches, it's the camaraderie in this league. No one is above anyone else, right? I think that's the key point I want to put. I think even though Jolt still was commissioner, you can talk to Jolt about anything. And I've only been in NPL for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks. Yeah, me and Jolt can talk about anything. I think the thing about the NPL is something a lot of people don't realize is that although we're all serious on camera, the jokes that go behind the scene are endless. I don't know how many times Jolt has been told that I want Sticks as commissioner, and how many times Jolt has told me to shut up. But that's just the love-hate relationship we have, so I have to let him be at risk, so make up for that. I think that's something really important, and something that Verd does really well, and I'm going to really call him out on this because he does it really, really well, is Verd is the type of guy that I think a lot of coaches should aspire to be like, because he always gets out there and has a go. And I think that's something a lot of people need to understand. And when Jolt was talking about his niche, it just reminded me of Verd so much. Because Verd puts on the glasses, he tries different things. Even today, he was doing that impersonation video, and I was like, I don't know how I should do it. Just do it. So he gets up there and does an excellent job of it. I think that's something a lot of coaches should try to do, is try to find your own niche as a coach, but at the same time, as a commissioner, your league needs to find that niche. But try to be that person in that league. That if you want to try to help build them up, be someone like Verd who helps everyone out, comments on all their videos, tries new things. Because if you essentially got to keep innovating, otherwise your league will stop growing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that 100%.
Indeed.
Yeah. So let's try to do this quickly, but let's talk about the matchups for this week, because that's what we've come down to. It's nearly an hour long. People are going to start yelling in the comments, but that's all right. We need the ad revenue here at Burbets. Burbet Zez is winning. That's all we're going to say on that. Not enough time. So first up, we have Baltimore being Blake against Los Angeles, which I believe is Danza. This looks like a really good match on paper. Having Blake against Danza is definitely going to be an interesting match, in my opinion. I think that Tapu Lele plus Mega Alakazam, I don't think Blake really has much for. I think that his best check is the Mega Pincer. That's not even going to really want to do it. I think he traded the Latios a week too early, in my opinion. I think he should have kept Latios for Danza. But
yeah, I heard Latios really likes to switch into Spect Moonblast. It's a good time.
No, well, okay, well, sorry, Joel, but when you look at the rest of Danza's team, you know, he has that Kimono, he has that Serp, he has that Entei, he has that Vaporeon. When Laddie gets all the coverage moves as well, gets the Z moves as well, Joel. Rotom.
Continue, it's okay. Just giving you a hard time.
I know. That one. Bloody Jolt. It's sort of fun in games with someone just feeling to get hurt. Alright, Jolt. Well, you can take the next one. We have Togue against Rizzy. Pow!
God bless. God bless my
That's
eardrums.
what I was gonna say.
That should be a good matchup. I think it is in Toge's favor. His team just has such a really strong matchup against Riz. It'll be interesting to see though if Riz brings any of his new mons to that matchup. I think maybe not having the Ghost type could be bad, but we'll have to see how it goes.
Well, we gotta think about Chris doesn't have anything for Mega Kanks, so we'll see how that goes.
No one has anything for Mega. Mega Kang is the most broken mon in League format, according to Blunder. It's been in so many leagues.
Hey man, you want to beat Mega Kang? You just crit it with Superpower turn 2.
True.
True. Next up, we have the Lizard versus hopefully the Staraptor, and hopefully the Staraptor can eat the Lizard. So we can shut up about how
we're gonna try.
Joel, why don't you tell us how you feel about that? You're gonna try.
No, we'll see on that. Obviously, Zazo has one of the best drafted teams in the league, so I don't want to say too much about it because it might reveal my strategies. But yeah, it'll be a game that will happen. And we'll see how that goes. It's a hard one. It's a hard one for sure. But don't count me out. I've got a chance.
Such deep detail.
Oh my god. That was like when Maddie asked me, "Why do you think Cloud would beat Gypsy?" And I was like, I'm like, Maddie, are you helping Gypsy mock? And he's like, "Yeah, I am." I'm like, "Well, I'm not telling you why I think Cloud's gonna win then, because give away your strategies." Next up, we have Dallas, the lovely man I was just talking about, Mr. Cloud Envy. This is gonna be another close match, I think. Cloud better find a Mega Charizard X switch in, and I think that Dallas' Mega Charizard X, the Lizard himself, will run for Cloud. But you know, knowing Cloud, you might forget the Toxic X is there. You never know with Cloud. Could be an off week, could be a good week. Could have 3 girlfriends, could have 4. You never know with Cloud. He likes to keep us on least on our toes.
Dude, I like how you talk about how Toxapex is a Zardex check when there's an Arcanine right there.
I mean, I love it when my Arcanine switches into an Earthquake from a
I heard Arcanine could do a whole lot to Charizard X.
Nah, man, Arcanine can come in, intimidate on the DD, and then just roar it out every time, and it takes rocks if he gets them up. Like, I don't see the issue.
Okay. Oh, what
is the Toxapex doing?
Sorry, haze. Just haze. Just
haze. Hashtag haze for days.
Hashtag hazing out the competition. Hashtag shading myself plug.
Hashtag hazing out the haters.
So when you talk about my least favorite German against his match against Florida is Florida is Seb. Yeah, that's gonna be one of the most.
Oh, mate, Sebastian. Yeah, it'll be a good game. I think Seb has done really well at the start of the season, but I think, you know, his first 2 opponents weren't as good as his next 2 opponents have been, so I think it's going to be a bit of a step up for him, but I'm really wanting to see him continually improve. I think, you know, he gets better with every league match he does, regardless of the fact that he lost against Trev. I think, you know, he's always bringing creative move sets, and I think, you know, against Shard he'll have to be creative or else he's going to get destroyed. So it should be a really good matchup.
So next up we have my least favourite Aussie, being Gypsy, against Mercury, which will probably be the game of the week. I really like the matchup for both these teams. I think it's going to be come down to a couple of 4 mons, being Mega Gardevoir versus that Jirachi, and Merc's Mega Latias against the use against, for example, Gypsy's own Latios, which Blake very kindly handed him. I think he's very nice. I think it's going to be a good matchup. Hopefully for Gypsy, it's not going to take as long as Jolt's game did, because, you know, Gypsy's a busy man, important man in the world, and stealing my bloody Ethernet cable. But, you know, that's Gypsy's choice, not mine. Merc, on the other hand, he likes making sure that either his opponents are there for 3 minutes or are there for 3 hours. So it's going to be a good match.
I'm actually going to try to paint my room during the match this time for Mo, just to see, just so I have something to do in between turns. Next up, we have another good game in being Abe v Trev. So, let me talk about your good friend, Trev.
Well, I'm hopeful that this was kind of the turning point for Trev, as because I don't have to play him this season, I don't really care. Like, I'm not opposed to him doing well, so I definitely want to see Trev do well. Abe is also my buddy, though, so we'll kind of see how that goes. But it's a pretty volatile matchup, I would say. Trev definitely has some pretty big threats against Abe. Abe's whole team is composed of threats, so we'll just kind of see how that goes. But yeah, I think that's all I really want to say on that. I think it'll be a really good game, probably pretty close as well, so we'll just kind of see how that goes.
And you should take the last match.
Oh, I should? Oh, okay.
Yeah, man. Oh, wait, what? Yo, he totally swerved me there.
Yeah, I know. Next minute, Bird not in minors because he swerved Jolt in that one time with the podcast, but no one was listening to him anymore. Ramble. Bird, take for us the last match being Carney. So it's the Razor's. Razor's a bit depressed, but his mum's taking him to the carnival to cheer him up. What do you think that game's going to be like for him, Bird?
It's going to be tough because both of them have threats that can just destroy each other's team. So it really comes down to what they bring, and then if both of the aforementioned threats are there, which one can put in more work. I think it's just genuinely going to be a slugfest. I think neither of them are really going to play that defensively. It's just going to be who can hit the other person the hardest, who can slap their dick against the other one the hardest, as to who's going to win this battle, to be fair.
I love that imagery.
you know Carney's going to win, though. That Madagascan penis is just coming through.
all the practicing on risk. So, guys, we appreciate your patience, but we want to thank the coaches for making so many bloody trades and transactions this week for the video being so long. Keep doing what you're doing, coaches. We want to see that record broken every single week. Let's see the weekly podcast gets longer and longer. So me and Verd have any suit. No. Jolt, this is my league. Let me tell you how. I want to tell you how to
Wow. Guess who's not making my moves? Wow.
But this is your last week in the league. Pack your bags and leave. Yeah, thanks guys for joining us. Massive thanks to Mama Jolt for stepping in, telling people how to be a good commissioner like himself, and for very kindly looking at those people with faults and overlooking them when they say certain things. It's only a joke, Jolt. I love this too much. Don't make me leave.
It's just a prank, bro.
And my good friend, my other Aussie buddy, being the turd or the Verd. I don't know. I just read his.
You read my Discord? Yeah, I was feeling it.
Yeah. Not as good as your Tampa Bay Fogade is. That was another good one.
Fogade, that was pretty good. Yeah, I come up with good ones.
Well, guys, until next time, peace.